Good evening, friend. Tonight we drift gently into the life of Leonardo da Vinci, a quiet thinker whose imagination stretched far beyond his century. Before he painted masterpieces or designed strange machines, he was a boy wandering the soft hills of Tuscany, watching birds rise into the sky and wondering how anything so small could defeat gravity. Leonardo was born in 1452 in the village of Vinci, surrounded by vineyards and warm sunlight. He came from two different worlds, his father, a respected notary, and his mother, a humble peasant woman. This unusual beginning shaped him. He belonged everywhere and nowhere, allowing his mind to travel beyond the limits of ordinary life. As a child, Leonardo preferred silence over chatter. He watched water falling over rocks for hours, studying the tiny whirlpools forming in its path. He examined feathers, leaves, and shells as if each carried a hidden message. While other children played games, Leonardo listened to the world. And slowly, the world began to speak back. Villagers sometimes thought the boy was odd, but every detail he observed, every branch, shadow, and movement was stored somewhere deep within him. He once found a broken bird's egg and held it gently, imagining the creature that never emerged. Even then, he saw what others missed, not just what existed, but what could have been. At 14, Leonardo's father brought him to Florence, the center of Renaissance creativity. The city pulsed with music, sculpture, debate, and invention. Markets filled the streets, and candlelit workshops glowed late into the night. For a quiet boy from a small village, Florence felt like a doorway into a much larger universe. Leonardo joined the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio, one of Florence's great masters. There he learned how to mix colors from minerals, how to sculpt clay into lifelike forms, and how to study light as if it were a living thing. The workshop was loud and busy, but Leonardo moved through it like a soft breeze. Verrocchio once assigned Leonardo a small task, painting an angel in the corner of a larger work. But when the painting was revealed, the angel Leonardo created seemed alive, its expression gentle, its gaze full of calm intelligence. Florence whispered. A new kind of artist had appeared, one who saw deeper than others. Yet Leonardo had a challenge. He rarely finished what he began. His mind jumped from one idea to the next, overflowing with curiosity. He would start a painting, then turn to anatomy, then architecture, then machines, then back to painting. He wasn't unfocused. He was simply filled with too much wonder for one task to contain. His notebooks soon became treasure chests of thoughts. Thousands of sketches filled their pages, birds in flight, flowing water, human muscles, inventions no one had imagined before. He wrote backward in mirror script, perhaps to keep his ideas private, or simply because it felt natural. In those pages his true mind unfolded freely. Florence admired him, but Leonardo longed for larger challenges. And so he traveled to Milan, offering his talent not as a painter, but as a military engineer. He claimed he could design bridges, weapons, and machines of war. But the Duke soon discovered Leonardo's gentler gifts, his art, his imagination, and his ability to see beauty everywhere. In Milan, Leonardo began work on one of his greatest creations, The Last Supper. In a quiet dining hall, he studied every expression, every gesture, trying to capture the moment when Jesus reveals that one of the disciples will betray him. Each face in the painting reacts differently, like a frozen wave of emotion. Leonardo didn't rush. He observed real people in the streets, watching how surprise lifted eyebrows or how fear tightened the mouth. He returned to the wall day after day, sometimes adding only a single brushstroke. The monks grew impatient, but Leonardo knew emotion could not be forced, it had to unfold naturally. When the Last Supper was finally revealed, it stunned Milan. It wasn't just a painting. It was a moment suspended in time. The disciples seemed to breathe, argue, question, and fear all at once. Even as the paint began to fade with humidity, the emotional truth remained as clear as the day he painted it. Yet Leonardo was never satisfied with just painting. At night, he visited hospitals to study anatomy. He wanted to understand how the human body worked, not out of morbid curiosity, but out of respect. Muscles, bones, veins, he believed every part of the body held a secret about how life moved. He drew heart valves opening and closing, the swirl of hair on a newborn's head, and the twisting of muscles when someone reached forward. His anatomy sketches were centuries ahead of their time. Doctors today still admire the accuracy of his drawings, amazed that one person could see so clearly without modern tools. Leonardo's fascination extended to the natural world. He watched birds glide through the sky, wings curving gently with the wind. He studied how feathers overlapped, how air flowed around them. In his notebooks, he wrote, "Once you have tasted flight, you will walk with your eyes turned toward the sky." He designed flying machines, ornithopters with flapping wings, gliders shaped like giant bats, even a parachute made from linen and wooden poles. Most of these designs were centuries too early to work. But Leonardo didn't mind. He believed the dream of flight belonged to the future, and he was simply sketching the way. Despite his brilliance, Leonardo often faced frustration. Patrons complained that he took too long. Assistants struggled to keep up. Some projects remained unfinished for years. Yet his restlessness was not a flaw. It was the sign of a mind that refused to accept limits, a mind always wandering further. One of his most mysterious works began in Florence, the portrait of Lisa del Giocondo. The painting would later be known as the Mona Lisa. Leonardo carried it with him for years, adding delicate layers of paint so thin that light still passes through them today. He studied her smile endlessly. People say the Mona Lisa smiles at you, but Leonardo once wrote that a smile is shaped not by lips alone, but by the soul behind them. Her expression changes as you think. When you feel calm, she looks gentle. When you feel unsure, she seems to know. That is why her smile never fades, it listens. Leonardo believed every smile, every shadow, and every movement hid a deeper truth. That belief shaped not only his art, but his inventions. His notebooks filled with gears, levers, and strange machines, each drawn with care. Some designs were practical. Others were dreams waiting for the right century. Among his many ideas were armored vehicles, rotating bridges, water pumps, and machines meant to lift entire buildings. Some were created for war, though Leonardo disliked violence. He once wrote that wars were madness driven by fear, yet he lived in a time when rulers demanded inventions of power. Still, even in his engineering, Leonardo's gentle spirit appeared. His sketches often included notes reminding himself to avoid harming animals or to consider safer methods. He saw the world not as something to conquer, but as something to understand. That mindset shaped everything he created. Leonardo's curiosity had no boundaries. He studied water, fascinated by how it flowed, crashed, swirled, and carved its own path. He believed water was the driving force of all nature. He sketched storms, rivers, ocean waves, and imagined ways to control floods long before modern engineering existed. His water studies revealed something deeper about him. Leonardo was patient. He could watch a river for hours, tracing how droplets separated and recombined. Others thought he was wasting time. But to Leonardo, nothing in nature was random. Every pattern whispered a story, if only one listened long enough. In the early 1500s, Leonardo returned to Florence. The city had changed. Powerful families rose and fell. New artists appeared. Yet Leonardo continued calmly, unbothered by competition. He began designing murals, machinery, and even city plans. His ideas were so advanced that many were impossible at the time. During this period, Leonardo studied human emotion more deeply than ever. He observed people in markets, churches, and crowded streets, trying to understand the subtle ways faces revealed inner thoughts. His notebooks are filled with tiny sketches of eyes, lips, and hands, each capturing a different feeling. Florence admired Leonardo, but Rome eventually called for him. The powerful Medici family invited him to work under their patronage. In Rome, he studied ancient ruins, dissected more bodies, and explored new scientific puzzles. Yet political tensions made his work difficult, and he often felt isolated. By this time, younger artists like Michelangelo and Raphael were rising quickly. Their fame grew, while Leonardo worked quietly in the background. But he didn't envy them. He believed learning was infinite and that no single life could contain all knowledge. Competition meant little to a mind like his. Eventually, King Francis I of France invited Leonardo to join his court. The king admired him deeply, not only as an artist, but as a thinker. Leonardo traveled over the Alps carrying his notebooks and unfinished paintings, including the Mona Lisa. In France, he found something he had long searched for: peace. In France, Leonardo lived in a quiet residence called Clos Luc, a small manor gifted to him by the king. The rooms were peaceful, filled with soft light. Here, Leonardo spent his days teaching, sketching, and reflecting. For the first time, he wasn't rushing to finish commissions. He simply created. King Francis visited often, sitting beside Leonardo as he explained new ideas or showed sketches. The king admired not only his talent, but his gentle wisdom. To Francis, Leonardo wasn't just a painter. He was a guide, someone who saw the world with rare clarity and patience. By this time, Leonardo's right hand had grown weak, likely from an illness or stroke. Though he couldn't paint large works anymore, he continued drawing slowly with his left hand. His lines were softer, trembling sometimes, yet full of grace. Creation for Leonardo was life itself. In his final years, Leonardo focused on philosophy. He wrote short reflections about nature, kindness, and the passing of time. As a day well spent brings restful sleep, he wrote, a life well spent brings peaceful death. These quiet thoughts reveal a man at ease with his journey. Even as his body weakened, Leonardo's curiosity never dimmed. He studied the flow of rivers, the impact of wind, and the shapes of clouds. He believed nature was a teacher, always ready to reveal new truths. To him, death was not an end, just another transformation. On May 2, 1519, Leonardo grew faint. He rested in his bed, surrounded by the soft glow of afternoon light. According to legend, King Francis held his hands as he whispered his final thoughts. Whether true or not, history remembers their bond as one of deep respect. Leonardo passed away quietly at the age of 67. France mourned him as a national treasure. His body was laid to rest near the Château d'Amboise. But his legacy didn't remain in one place. His inventions, drawings, and ideas spread across Europe, touching countless lives. Today, Leonardo is remembered not only for the Mona Lisa or the Last Supper, but for his insatiable curiosity. He believed that learning was a lifelong journey. His notebooks, filled with mirrored writing and delicate sketches, still astonish scientists, artists, and dreamers. Perhaps his greatest lesson is this: genius isn't about perfection. It's about attention, wonder, and the courage to follow questions wherever they lead. Leonardo showed that creativity and science are not separate paths, they are threads of the same tapestry. As we close this gentle journey through Leonardo's life, imagine him once more in his quiet studio. A candle burning, papers scattered, the soft scratch of a quill moving across a page. Always learning, always observing, always reaching for the hidden patterns of the world. Leonardo's influence continued long after his passing. Centuries later, scientists rediscovered his notes and realized how far ahead he truly was. Ideas that once seemed impossible, flying machines, diving suits, armored vehicles, became blueprints for modern inventions. His mind had lived in the future. Engineers studying his designs often wondered how one man could imagine such advanced mechanisms with no formal training. Leonardo observed nature endlessly, using its principles to guide his inventions. To him, birds were engineers of the sky, rivers were architects of the land, and humans were students of both. In modern museums, visitors still press close to the glass, studying his delicate sketches. Some show the anatomy of the heart, drawn with such detail that modern doctors remain impressed. Others show machines made of gears and pulleys, still recognizable hundreds of years later. Leonardo treated the human body like a landscape. Each muscle, each bone, each motion had purpose. His dissections were not morbid curiosity. They were a search for truth. He wanted to understand the miracle of life in its smallest movements, believing knowledge brought reverence, not detachment. Artists admire him for his understanding of light. Leonardo noticed how shadows soften edges, how distant hills turned blue, and how faces revealed emotion through tiny shifts. His technique, sfumato, blended tones gently, creating softness that made his portraits feel alive and breathing. Even today, filmmakers and photographers study his approach to light. Designers borrow his ideas of proportion. Architects draw inspiration from his city plans. Leonardo never confined himself to one discipline. He believed all knowledge connected, like threads woven into a single pattern. If Leonardo lived now, he might explore artificial intelligence, robotics, or bioengineering. His notebooks show a mind comfortable at the intersection of art and science. He saw no boundary between them. To him, beauty existed in the curve of a feather and the structure of a machine. Though centuries have passed, people still feel drawn to Leonardo, not because he was perfect, but because he was endlessly curious. He reminds us that learning is not a race. It is a gentle unfolding, a patient journey, a willingness to ask questions without fear of seeming foolish. Leonardo once wrote, "Learning never exhausts the mind. In an age of noise and haste, his words feel like a quiet whisper inviting us to slow down, to look more carefully, to notice the small wonders around us, patterns in clouds, reflections on water, the quiet rhythm of breath." As the world continues to accelerate, Leonardo's spirit offers balance, a reminder that depth matters more than speed, that curiosity is a compass, and that even in uncertainty, we can find peace by observing, listening, and letting the world reveal itself one detail at a time. Leonardo's notebooks, once scattered and forgotten, are now treasured like sacred relics. Each page reveals a mind moving in quiet harmony with the world. Some sketches feel playful, little inventions drawn out of curiosity. Others are complex diagrams, revealing thoughts that seemed centuries ahead. Many pages were never meant for the public. Leonardo wrote for himself, exploring ideas freely without fear of judgment. That freedom allowed him to wander across art, science, engineering, and philosophy with childlike wonder. His notebooks are less like textbooks and more like dream journals. Among his writings are gentle reflections on emotion. Leonardo believed that understanding human feeling was as important as understanding anatomy or flight. He wrote about kindness, patience, and the subtle ways people reveal their inner worlds without speaking a single word. Some of the most touching notes are simple observations, the way light dances on water at dusk, or how a smile begins with the eyes before reaching the lips. These moments show Leonardo not just as a genius, but as someone deeply moved by the quiet poetry of life. In his studies of nature, Leonardo wrote that all things are connected: water to wind, light to shadow, body to spirit. Modern scientists now speak of ecosystems and networks, but Leonardo sensed these patterns centuries before the language existed to describe them. Even his failures reveal his brilliance. Many inventions remained unfinished, not because they were impossible, but because Leonardo constantly sought improvements. He was never satisfied with good enough. Each idea opened the door to three more, and his imagination outran his time. This restlessness sometimes frustrated patrons, but it was also the source of his genius. Leonardo lived in constant exploration. For him, the purpose of life was not completion, it was discovery. And discovery required patience, attention, and an open heart. Today, scholars analyze his smallest sketches. A simple swirl of ink may represent an early idea for a turbine. A quick outline of a bird reveals the first step toward understanding aerodynamics. Each mark carries meaning, a tiny window into the mind of a man always searching. Leonardo's presence is felt everywhere: museums, classrooms, films, inventions, and quiet conversations about creativity. People who study him often describe a strange comfort, as if they are stepping into a gentler way of seeing the world. His curiosity invites us to slow down and breathe. As our journey approaches its final moments, imagine Leonardo in his last studio in France. The air is still. Papers rest in soft piles. A candle flickers beside sketches of wings, rivers, and gentle faces. At that desk, he continued searching for truths he knew he might never fully grasp. In his quiet room at Clos-Luc, Leonardo often paused to watch sunlight drift across the walls. He believed light carried stories. Its warmth reminded him of childhood days in Tuscany, where shadows moved gently over rolling hills. Even near the end, those memories brought him peace. He spent his evenings reflecting on the mysteries he had explored: how birds soar, how rivers carve valleys, how the human mind shapes emotion. Though he answered many questions, he discovered even more. Leonardo accepted that curiosity was endless, and that was what made life beautiful. Visitors who met Leonardo in France described him as calm and thoughtful. His voice was soft, his movements slow, and his eyes observant. They sensed a quiet strength in him, the kind that comes from a lifetime of wonder. He listened more than he spoke, choosing his words carefully. Even in conversation, Leonardo drifted naturally toward nature: clouds, water, wind, and animals. He believed understanding the world began with paying attention. And so, he encouraged young artists to spend hours watching simple things: ripples on a pond, leaves turning in autumn, or footsteps in dust. As the seasons changed, Leonardo felt time moving gently around him. But he was not afraid. He often said that life was a series of lessons, each one preparing us for the next. And when the final lesson comes, we meet it calmly, the way we greet a familiar friend. In his final reflections, Leonardo wrote, "While I thought I was learning how to live, I was learning how to die." These words hold a soft wisdom and understanding that life's meaning becomes clearest when we slow down and see the world not with urgency, but with gratitude. Today, his legacy continues not because he was perfect, but because he remained endlessly curious. He teaches us that wonder is a form of courage, and that noticing small details can open entire worlds. Leonardo's spirit invites us to stay curious, even in ordinary moments. As we close this journey, imagine walking beside Leonardo through a quiet garden at dusk. Fireflies drift through the air. The sky fades into deep blue. Leonardo pauses, watching the first stars appear, and smiles softly as if recognizing an old pattern in the shimmering night. The world around you begins to slow. Your breathing softens. The story settles gently in your mind the way twilight settles over a peaceful landscape. Leonardo's life reminds us that curiosity is a companion, guiding us toward understanding and calm, one question at a time. And now, as you drift toward rest, let his gentle spirit stay with you. Let the quiet wisdom of his life ease your thoughts. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let every detail fade into softness. Thank you for sharing this journey tonight. Sleep well and dream with wonder.